Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
Okay, this is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. We have a very special guest on our show today, a parallel to my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry. We have Clare Marshall, writer of books, doer of business.
That's right.
That's
me.
you. And where are you?
Things.
Where are you right now?
I am sitting in the office of my new house in Calgary.
We've brought you here today to talk about something that, well, I thought I was going to talk about something specific with you, but then something happened today that was different than normal. Into the studio today came a third-year architecture student who was coming for some career mentorship advice. I don't know, advice is the wrong word. More like, how would you categorize that, Justin?
Yeah,
She wanted permission, career permission.
So wait, can I help set this up?
Yeah.
Did they just wander into the 7th floor studio that you have? They just found their way up to the top?
Our studio is much like a lobster trap, that it's easy to find your way into it, but then hard to escape. So she was probably there looking for something else. No. Samantha Bico had arranged for this student. Well, the faculty had reached out to me, and I said, organize it with Sam, and then Sam organized this person to come and have this meeting. So it was not a straight path, and that was what our conversation was about, how the path to a creative life is not a straight one. And so I would like us to direct our conversation with you along those same lines. Now, we have a project that we're working on with you, so we're going to talk about that a little bit, I hope. And sure. We have some projects in general that we can talk about, but what I'd like to start with, warm up with for the two of you, if you don't mind, is in, let's say, 30 seconds or less, sum up your entire school experience and the path that brought you to where you're sitting now.
Okay, so school experience plus work experience.
I guess so.
So basically, our whole lives.
Yeah, in 30 seconds, go.
Oh boy, okay. So I grew up in rural Nova Scotia. I graduated from Duncan Macmillan High School. I went to the University of King's College for journalism. I got a combined honors in journalism and psychology. Then I went to Humber College in Toronto, where I got a publishing certificate. From there, I started freelancing in publishing, working for not only individual clients, but also a lot of different and kind of larger companies, and started doing websites and stuff. And then I started publishing my own books. So that's in a very 30 seconds or less, my education and experience to this point.
Perfect. Justin,
wow.
Go.
Okay.
Be better than that.
I attended Pilot Mound High School, graduated in 2004. Wanted to be an artist, so I applied for fine arts and graphic design. Turns out graphic design came in first, so I started the ball rolling on that. Just trained as a graphic designer. Didn't like it at first, started to really, really enjoy it by the end. Took the advanced third-year diploma, and I really found my style in that third year. Worked as a graphic designer for, I think, 2 years after that, and then got picked up by a video game company because my illustration had kind of caught up to my design skill set, and they were both something that could be used by a bigger company. Worked in video games for a while, and then started doing conventions on the side, and conventions quickly snowballed into this whole other revenue stream and kind of a catalyst for my professional illustration career. So 3 years ago, I left the video game company and started chasing artwork full-time as a company. And that leads me to here.
Right now? Here?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I guess I should do that too.
Okay.
Go. So I grew up in Saint Germain, Manitoba, just outside of Winnipeg. I went to Minnetonka School and then on to Glenlawn Collegiate. I went on to university despite my own protestations. I didn't think it was a right fit for me. I was summarily kicked out of university a few years later because I was attending third and fourth year classes with special permission from the faculty that did not actually exist, instead of going to my first and second year classes. So that was summed up as academic dishonesty, and I was told that I could never again attend a post-secondary system anywhere in Manitoba. And they gave me a letter to that effect.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then after that, I went to BC for a little while, had a good adventure, living on a ski hill, went up to a few kilometers inside the Arctic Circle in a $300 car, not to be recommended. Came back and took an entrepreneurship program, realized that I did want to open my own business, took an entrepreneurship program at Red River, graduated in the top 2 or 3% of that, bought into a comic store, opened a movie distribution company, started a store that sold comics, books, and movies, realized once I met the woman of my dreams that I could be a good spouse or a good entrepreneur, but not both at the same time. Went back to school, did my... Yeah, how did I go back, you ask? That's a story for another day. But I got a degree in education from the same university that told me that I would never be able to come back. Did my 3-year undergrad in 2 years, because turns out school's not that hard. And then when you're motivated, and then went into education, did 10 years of education, and every year that I was in education, I also put out a book or graphic novel along the way until it built up enough that I could step sideways onto this as my full-time career, which I've done for the last 3 years.
Wow, that was longer than 30 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Dan will edit that down. That's the only thing? Yeah, everyone really likes that part. My students in particular really liked when I would tell them that I got kicked out of university and told never to come back. And they're like, well, how are you standing? Don't you need a degree to be here? And I would say, no, I actually just came in one day. And the substitute hadn't shown up. And so I just took over.
There used to be a time when you didn't need a degree to be a teacher. You could just walk in.
I know.
And be a teacher.
In those halcyon days.
Hey, who do you think you are, anyway?
Answer me or I destroy you.
It is not a straight path that any of us took to get here. But wait, I thought that's what school sets you up for, is the straight path.
No, that's a lie.
That's a lie. Justin, is that a lie?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Most times.
Well, okay. So I think it's a dream that has been fed to like my generation in particular. We were told that, get good grades, you get to go to the university of your choice, and then you get to have the job of your choice. But like, especially if you're a creative entrepreneur, that's not really that's just not the case. And also it's just not the case, I think, in general, like in just today's climate. I was told, so my parents, or my mom in specific, she was like, maybe you should go into journalism because you like writing. And I was like,
I just want to pause that for our listeners, because I was told go into architecture because you like drawing, and you were told, Justin,
graphic design because you like illustrating.
Yeah, so we all were fed that parallel line.
Right.
We weren't
And
fed
I
that.
think-
That was
I
just
think
a push in a productive, hopefully everything will turn out direction.
Well, and I think your parents want the best life for you too. So they're going to recommend the career path that makes the most sense and hopefully gets you the best job. So my mom said, well, why don't you go to journalism? You can try it out. And if you don't like it, you can just get a regular arts degree or whatever. So I tried journalism and I stuck with it, mostly because another line that was fed to me at university was, if you get a journalism degree, it's basically a trade. So you can get a job not only in journalism, but in communications and all that, which is not untrue.
In the thriving world of journalism.
Yes. So in 2008, in my second year of university, it was in Halifax. So there were 2 papers. That was when the recession hit in the States, and one of the papers in Halifax happened to also shut down. And that was when this like cloud of fear came over the class, and it was like, there's no jobs. There's no jobs in journalism. If you came here looking for a job, well, think again, because guess what? There are no jobs.
Well, and when I was in education, they were also saying the same thing. They're saying there's so many more graduates now than there has ever been before. Good luck, there are no jobs. Nobody's retiring, everyone's sticking it out.
That same conversation was happening. Like, does that just happen universally in your last year of education? Whatever you're getting educated on, people are going to say there's no jobs.
So
I made the wrong choice.
Okay, so my armchair psychology about this is that the great thing about the lie of post-secondary education is it's a lie that you don't find out the truth about until many years later. And it's Emperor's New Clothes scenario, where you're so far along in the parade that you don't want to be the one to point it out. So everyone just is like, yay, we're at school and everything's going to be fine. And this is why we pay our tuition and hooray. And then you go into the job market and you realize that nothing you did at school matters more than your portfolio. And nothing that is in your portfolio matters more than your ability to have a good job interview.
I actually... at the end of my second year, I thought about leaving university to start my own business, because that was around the time when I was starting to research publishing and like really get into researching the business of publishing. And like I even printed off paperwork like to register the business, and I had done all this research, and I went to my parents and I was like, so I'm thinking about taking a year off. Because also all of my friends, they were, planning a 5-year undergrad instead of the 4 years. Like they were kind of in that direction. And so I was like, it's fine. It's fine if I don't finish in 4 years. And they were like, no, you should get a degree. And I was like, I guess. And you know what? I am glad that I stayed in school, because if I had started Fairy Ink Press then, I wouldn't even know half the things that I do now, because I went to a publishing school instead and combined my research with actual practical knowledge and learned like, hey, it's hard. It's hard to be in this business, and got like practical experience. And so I am actually really glad that I stayed in school for the degree.
We've covered this before on the podcast, I think, but Justin made a really great point at another time, saying that, in the town he was from, and, frankly, we're all in Canada. So in all the towns that we are from, hockey is presented as this amazing thing that everyone should participate in and put in all this time and energy and money into. But the likelihood of succeeding as a professional hockey player is less likely than getting a regular job as a full-time writer or artist or rock star, right? Like you could definitely be a rock star easier than you can be a NHL player. Yet our entire culture is like, do this, everyone should do this. And somehow we are okay with the one, but not the other.
We didn't have hockey really in my town. I was trying to think of like a comparison sport.
You maybe shouldn't name the town again, or a rival town will come and burn it down. That's sort of like a thing.
It happens.
It happens.
No.
Right?
Rival towns are so far away.
Remember the town before Pilot Mound? Now they call it Burning Hill. That's just that space. It's just this scorched hill. They didn't play hockey there either. So she's like, I have nothing to say to that.
She's not from a hockey town.
Not from a hockey town. I'm not from a hockey town.
I told you. There's no hockey where I live. Well, I think there is a rink there now, but it's not really for hockey. The biggest sport that actually got students involved, because let me remind you, I grew up in a very, very rural town where my high school was 7 to 12, and it was like less than 200 people.
Let's play Who's the Smallest Town. How many people in your high school?
Graduating the high school? I don't know. There's I grew up on a farm. The closest town was around, 200 to 250. And then I went to the next town over, which was 700 people to go to school.
A thriving
we had to combine
metropolis.
with another town to actually make enough people for the high school.
Oh, see, I was close enough to Winnipeg that I just bust in to the city.
City mouse over here.
Yeah, there was a school I could have gone to, but the average population of the school at any given time was 30 students from grades 4 to grade 8, something like that. There'd be 30 students total, and my parents, who were both educators, knew that those teachers were doing their best, but that, sometimes some great cross-pollination works if there's more kids.
So I arranged for my bees to attack him.
I had a bit of a self-realization a while ago. I think coming from a small town, coming into the city for graphic design, I assumed everybody had gotten some kind of leg up on their illustrative and design training, and I was behind because I grew up without resources that they had. And so I think right off the bat, I was dead set on proving myself and trying harder and, catching up.
Claire's nodding vehemently. We can. She's far away, but we can see her through our Skype connection. So she's nodding vigorously.
So by the time that I'd put in all this work to catch up, I had learned a lot of things that these other kids hadn't. I think it was just that I'd put everybody up on a pedestal, and I was trying to get there too. And by the time I got there, I realized I probably didn't need to try that hard, but I'm really glad I did.
Is that did you feel like you needed to overachieve, Claire?
Yes, except that I think that absolutely I needed to try way harder because they did have courses and resources that we didn't have. So one example, when I went to university in the journalism program specifically, at least half of that first year class had already taken journalism in high school. And we didn't even have a school paper at my school. I remember a school paper for 1 year when I was in grade 7, and then it petered out because it all depends on teacher interests, what teacher can actually run the program. And a lot of the teachers, they come in from town, they come from far away. They don't have the time to stay after school in our little town, our little tiny village, and run a newspaper program. So that's not the only, there are a lot of ways that I felt very inferior to my other classmates, even though I was top of my class in Sheet Harbor. It was middle of the road for everybody else. Everybody else was up here in terms of education. That's how I felt. Just because we didn't have access, and we didn't really even have internet until I was 13. So just a lot of ways I felt very just not as far along.
How did it all shake out in the end, though?
Yeah.
By the time you were finished everything, because you went in with that kind of overachiever attitude, do you feel like you were further ahead by the time you were done the course?
I think that I was better at writing, maybe.
There you go.
I think in that respect, I was on par, and I think that I'm just very good at putting my nose to the grindstone and getting through. The thing with journalism, it's not it's not like you take a test and you know the thing. It's kind of like art, right? You write pieces and you put them out and they create a discussion. So it's also very subjective. So I think I still did well in the program.
It's not kind of like art. It's art. It's exactly an art. A good piece of journalism, right, pulls you in and is evocative as any painting in a gallery can be.
Painting with words.
Yeah. And I think I did know in the later part of the program that I wouldn't be a journalist, and so I had to focus on developing skills that would just help me be a better writer and entrepreneur. And so journalism taught me to write to a deadline. It taught me to just power through no matter what. In my last year, I think there were days when I was eating one meal a day because we were doing television production, and we were treated like real journalists. We were kind of just thrown out and been okay, find your stories. And we'd go and we'd find our stories and we'd bring them back and we edit them. And the teachers would be there and they would guide us, but there wasn't a lot of hand-holding in the respect of you just had to go do it and then you would learn from your mistakes.
That actually sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
You said at the beginning of that, you had realized you wouldn't be or couldn't be a journalist. Can you tell us about that realization? What was that?
Well, part of it had to do with everybody saying there's no jobs. The other part of it is I didn't want to be a journalist. The only journalist that I could see myself as was like a long form magazine journalist where I'm going deep on like one story. But by the time I got to my third and fourth year, I realized magazines are kind of on their way out. And I did like the online journalism. I liked the designing of, the newspaper and the websites and all that. But I couldn't deal with the lifestyle too. Just being always on. Like, we would hear stories of journalists who they would get calls in the middle of the night if you're on, the police beat or whatever, and you'd have to go to a crime scene and interview people for that. And if you were working as a journalist, usually the bottom rungs, like the entry level stuff, is that it's that basically. You're just always on, you're always fishing for that story. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that, and I don't think I want to do that. So
retrospect is always a clear lens. I'm looking now at you saying that you wanted to be a writer, your parents and you kind of found a middle ground and said, okay, journalism is writing. But in the end, everything about journalism that was actually journalism wasn't a good fit for you anyway, and you knew that all along.
Yeah. Yeah. But like doing the program did help me come out of my shell because I didn't know. And I think too that doing the program then would be different from me doing it now. I think I would get more out of it now that I'm a more confident person. I would have less of an issue being like, okay, I have to call this person I don't know and ask them this very hard question about their life and I'm a stranger. I would have less of a problem doing that now than when I was 19 and I had really less of a context for what the world is, because I went from very small town to Halifax and just like the world, and I didn't know. I didn't know what the world was. I was 17, 18. And now having lived in the world and had more experience, like, I don't know. I think it's very difficult to just make that kind of initial jump and expect to have any kind of success with it. So that could have been just part of it as well.
And I think that, and the little details are different, but your explanation of the experience, I would almost say, is a universal experience. Like every person that lands, like you just summed that up so well. I think we just land in that mess and are told, like, find a life. Mm-hmm. And you're too young to know what that should be. So do we have to fail at a career before we can become writers or artists? Is that a prerequisite? Do we have to fail at something first?
I think that failing is learning. You have to fail to learn. So I think you have to have a lot of different experiences to be a writer. So I think that that's important. But I don't think you have to necessarily fail at a career.
There isn't a single aspect of ship operations that's not under his control. If he were proven to be malfunctioning, I wouldn't see how we'd have any choice but disconnection.
So we've been talking about the idea that you make the path by walking it, essentially, right? And that it's not a straight path. You just have to put one experience in front of the other, and then you look backwards, and in retrospect, you have a life.
Yeah.
Right? Are there things that you can say were true at all stages that would be useful to a person who is now where we all were, starting university or starting post-secondary, or maybe they can't afford university and they're just in the job market and they're saying, all I want to do is write and make up stuff, but I have all these realities. What are some things that have always been true no matter of your economic situation?
I think one of the things we've kind of been talking about when you're starting out, it feels like you should know, everybody tells you there's a straight line and this is what's at the end of that line and that's what you should be doing. And it never really turns out that way, but as a young person, you think like, if I don't know exactly where that line is going, like I shouldn't try any of these other lines. I should just be going towards whatever that is. You don't know what it is. So I think, especially starting out, just moving forward, not necessarily towards anything in particular, but just making advancements in either your education or portfolio or whatever it is, as long as you're working away,
so then
that line's going to kind of find you.
Do you think the lie of the straight line, let's call it that, is a necessary one? That we have to tell people, yes, there is a clear path.
Maybe that's
follow
it, yeah.
just to get them started on the journey? Do you think that?
I think we're talking about a couple different things here. First, I want to say, I think in terms of qualities that you have at various stages of your life, I think that being independently minded was a thing that really helped me, because I wasn't really I'm kind of an anxious person, and I was always in high school the person who was very quiet, but I excelled academically. But I wasn't afraid to question the teacher if I was sure that they were wrong, and I wanted to think critically about material. So there was that. I also excelled in an environment where, I didn't need a teacher to tell me to do this. I would just kind of do my work. So there's that. And I think the third thing is I was afraid of a lot of things, but I wasn't afraid of leaving my small town. I wanted to leave. And I knew that there were opportunities waiting for me outside. If I just had to be willing to get out there and live in a different place than the one that I grew up in, because a lot of people that I grew up with, they didn't leave. But I mean, then that's their choice. But I just felt like I had to get out of there to even get that experience to be a better writer.
I was scared to leave.
You were scared to leave?
I was scared to leave.
But you left. Okay, so
left.
we have two. We have Claire, intrepid Claire, off into the world, who's identified independence, being observant, critical thinking, work ethic, and experience being
I'm going to blame
important.
my parents on this one, actually.
Okay.
Because I'm from a small town, and we came into the city maybe twice a year for back to school shopping and one kind of event, and it was always a stressful endeavor because Dad hated driving in the city. They were always lost. They were never sure where to park, and it was just everybody was super high stress levels. So that's what I associated the big city with, was stressful times. So I knew that I was going to come here for school, but I always figured, okay, I'm just going to put in my time, do the course, and then get back.
Just escape back to the safety of the
traffic
hills.
and parking
Right?
and scary big city.
Oh, man.
That's really interesting, because we would come into the city. So the city for us would be Halifax, Dartmouth, and it was an hour and a half away. But we would go once a week because we were in fiddle lessons, or we were in dance lessons, or we were in what have you lessons. And we wanted to be there, and our mom, made that sacrifice, driving an hour and a half each way once a week.
Wow.
So that we could have that. And that was also a really important part of my development, because without that musical training, that made me very confident speaking in front of people, performing in front of people. I've messed up on stage before, but it's fine. I didn't die. So that's also a learning experience. But yeah, so I didn't associate the city as a stressful place. It was a place of opportunity. It was a place that I couldn't be all the time. I didn't necessarily want to live there, but it was a place where things were happening, and I should at least be near there.
So you were afraid of it, Justin, and you were drawn to it, but you both ended up in it. We shouldn't discount this public speaking piece.
No.
People list among the worst fears on worldwide databases all over, next to a world war, that having to speak in public is right up there in the top 3 fears that everybody has.
I really think
It is
that's
scary.
It's just a practice thing. There's like 1 in 100 people who just naturally good at public speaking, but everybody else, like I was terrified of it. I was terrible at it, but then I had to do it
Right.
dozen times, and before I knew it, I was like I could speak to a gymnasium full of like high school kids, and I wasn't worried about it.
Yeah, and there's no tougher crowd than a gymnasium.
Yeah,
full
so
of high school
it was
kids.
just a. I really think it's just a practice thing. Like you're terrified of it because you never have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I like public speaking too, but
You're that 1 in 100 people, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But I see other people just completely crippled by that. So when we're talking about like being able to get into a room, like in our jobs, in all of our jobs, at a certain point you have to be in a room in front of a bunch of people whose opinions may or may not affect you, right? And you have to be able to just say your piece without being nervous about it. And all of us, I think, benefited from that piece of training.
I also, in high school, I think one of the things that I realized early too was that I needed to do something even though I was afraid of it. Like just no matter what, just do it and then it would be done and you would feel better afterwards. And so one of the things that I did was public speaking competitions in French.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I did that, I think.
Are you still fluent in French? Are you still fluent in French?
No, so I was never fluent. So in our school, we didn't have French immersion. We had, it was French and we had social studies and that was it. So it's called extended core. But so there's a special category for each level of French that you had in the competition. So I was in the like extended core section. But yeah, I signed up for the competition and I still remember, I think that's still one of like the scariest moments. I just remember being very aware of myself and my body and just telling myself like, it'll be over soon. You just have to do it and then it'll be fine. But never having that moment of it's over. It just keeps going. But I'm so glad that I did it because it was a very scary experience, but I did live, like I'm not dead. But I had to write the speech, and I did it a couple times, but one of the ones that I did that particular time was Joan of Arc. So I had to do the research, I had to write the speech in French, and then I had to perform it, and practice it and perform it a couple different times. And then at the end, so you did it in front of, we had to drive to town. We did it in front of a bunch of other like people who were my peers, other students, but 3 teachers who were the judges. And then they would ask you questions about your topic in French, and you had to answer in French. So I don't really remember that part at all. I just remember like just delivering the speech and being like so unbelievably nervous, but I did it.
I'm nervous just listening to the things you had to do there.
This is bringing me back to like speech arts when we used to recite poems in like middle school to judges.
Did you have that? We had in my grade 5-6 class, Miss Stanger and Mr. Kellett. It was a 5-6 split. We had to memorize a poem a week, every week, and perform it to both classes every week. Every kid.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
was that the whole class?
the whole class would do it. So one day, like one whole morning would be every week would be the kids all reciting poems
That
to each other.
smells
That they
like the
memorized.
teacher wanting to get out of work.
No, but as a teacher, I can see that the ability to memorize things, right?
Yeah.
Like they were really giving us a practice. We could pick anything we wanted, and I love so much that they asked us to do this. I hated it at the time. Like I was so resentful and annoyed that I had to find a new thing every week and memorize it. But the ability to get up in front of a group of, and when you're in middle school, like, you know, all your bullies are there too, and be able to say that poem, right? You're trying to pick something that represents you a little bit, or maybe it's just a joke or whatever it is, but you'd have to say it, get up in front of those people all the time, every time, and they all had to do it too. It was a great equalizer in the school.
We are friends, you and I. Friends. Good. And now for a smoke.
I wanted to ask, like, probably not as much you, but Claire, I noticed since doing like comic conventions and having to sell stuff point of sale to all these people and meet all these people, like prior to conventions, I feel like I was a lot more introverted. And since doing all these trade shows, just being able to speak to random strangers and carry on conversations, like the anxiety and the nervousness of just talking to strangers all the time has gone away. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts on that has been.
I think for me, I'm tapping into something that was instilled in me at a younger age. And I think that I did have a little bit of anxiety, a bit at the beginning, but there were two things that kind of came together to make me want to do the conventions and make me not like that nervous about them. One of them is the music lessons, performing in front of people. We would, like my sister and I, we were basically sister act. We'd play the fiddle, and afterwards, people would come up to us and talk to us, and they were strangers to us, but usually my mom would know them. But we had to learn as, 12, 13, 14-year-olds to engage in small talk with, 50 and 60-year-olds, which was something that I did not really enjoy, because I was like, why are you like, thank you for the compliment. Thank you for enjoying the performance. But I just want to go home now was my kind of reaction. But we still had to learn to converse with these strangers. And the second thing that helped me was that my dad is an entrepreneur. And when I was little, he would go to the Sunday markets, which in Nova Scotia, he would have a table. He would take his furniture that he made and he would go sell it. And sometimes I would go with him and I would help him sell the furniture. So I was, 7 or 8. And I wouldn't go every time, but I learned to talk. I also learned to talk to strangers and sell them this piece of furniture and explain what it was and accept money from them. And so that also was an experience that I was like, I think I want to, I like selling things. I want to be an entrepreneur. So those two things combined made me not quite as nervous. I think certain experiences have happened at conventions that have definitely made me more resilient to dealing with people. I've just dealt with a lot of different kinds of people, so you kind of learn how to handle different situations better. So I think that definitely helped my anxiety. But on a base level, I was just like, yeah, I'll go to Winnipeg and try KeyCon. Never been to Winnipeg before, but yeah, I'll do it.
Into the big city, Justin. She was fearless. So I often say to people that I am an introvert by nature and an extrovert by training. And that training began at a very young age with me when my parents and I would go out to a restaurant. I don't know why my sister is never in these memories. She had escaped into some extracurricular activity. We would be out at a restaurant, and I would just wanted to read my book or draw quietly in the corner of the booth. My dad would introduce me to the server, who I now realize I'm 9, maybe 8 or 9, and this server, in my mind, was an old lady, but really she was probably in her 20s, right? And he would introduce me to this person and try to arrange a date as a way to embarrass me out of my little corner. And it sounds really awful, but he would say hey, what do you, hi, what do you do? What are you studying? She'd be like, oh, I'm studying literature. Oh, well, my son really likes reading. Maybe you guys would have a lot in common, whatever. And I would be mortified by this exchange, just absolutely wanted to crawl under the table. But after 100 times of this, I started just looking at the person being like, yeah, what kind of books do you like to read? I'm reading Watership Down right now, right? And they'd be like, oh, well, I read that. And suddenly I'd be having this conversation, like you said, with an adult person.
Right.
Based on a shared interest. And I realized that, my dad's joke was making it this date setup. But what he was really doing was saying here's a person that you don't know here. And talking to people is okay and easy. Right. Because he saw the likelihood of his son just disappearing into a hole of books and drawing without ever wanting to speak to another human, I think ever again, would have been just fine with me at that age. So
I think that would have, do you think that would have turned out differently if you were a girl and not a boy?
Well, I know from my sister's point of view that he did that with all of them. So I don't know if it turned out differently. We could bring them on the podcast.
I would like that.
Yeah, you would like that? Oh, they have some stories. Let's not tell this story.
Because my grandfather tried to do that to me once,
Yeah.
too, except I was like 20 years old, like 19, 20. And we went to a restaurant, and that's kind of an unusual occurrence, that we would all go to a restaurant. So my grandparents, my aunt, my mom, and me all at a restaurant together. And it was like the Keg, and the server comes over, and he would have been around my age, but maybe a couple years older. And it comes out in conversation that he's an Olympic rower, and the Olympics were happening at the time. They were going on in China, or about to happen, and he was going to go to China and compete. And so my grandfather was like, oh, well, Claire here, like, she's a budding musical star and writer, and maybe you should, like,
how old were you?
Talk to her.
How old were
and
you?
Both of us were
1920.
so mortified and embarrassed that the waiter did not even look at me for the rest of the time.
See,
the rest of the meal.
my embarrassment training ended as soon as I was like 12 or 13. Once you were at like that age where you could actually date a person, there was definitely didn't happen anymore. I just laid down the law. I was like, Dad, you got to stop this. This is getting like really inappropriate at this point. Once I had but when I was little, like, and my oldest son is at the same age now. And rather than try and hook him up with the people that we meet in, the world, I will, however, try to train. He's also a very introvert. So I see passing that torch. I try to get him to talk to people and figure out, like, state an interest and see if you have a shared interest. And then if you do, talk about those things. So, right? I don't know. Did you have your parents embarrass you like that,
Oh, yeah.
Justin? Yeah? Okay.
I don't have any particular stories. And
No.
I feel like, so the last couple of weeks, I've had my sister came into town, and Gregory shared a hotel room with my parents and myself in New York. You've gotten way too many.
I recorded some embarrassing stories that your mom
too many
told.
embarrassing stories, so we're gonna just pump the brakes on embarrassing Justin stories for a while.
We'll gather. Maybe what we should do is record a few embarrassing stories on both sides of the fence, and then we'll do an episode of just people telling embarrassing stories about us.
It's an interesting thing when you consider the Earth people who can think are so frightened by those who cannot, the dead.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time left, Claire, and I want to talk to you about something that we brought you into our lives for. Dun, dun, dun. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire is going to give you a brief synopsis, I'll say that word correctly, of her job as a writer and who she writes for and why she writes those things. And then we'll tell you what she's going to do for us.
In French.
Oh no. I write young adult science fiction and fantasy and sometimes horror books. My press is Fairy Ink Press, and that's primarily where I publish out of. And I have 7 books currently. I do 1 book a year. Do you want me to talk about what I'm going to do for you? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our dear listeners what the heck we asked you to do?
How did that even happen? I forget.
How
now.
did that happen?
How did it happen?
Yeah, it's too late now.
Gregory,
We signed a contract.
You came up to me at Edmonton Expo like 2 years ago, and you're like, I want you to do a project with us. And I was like, okay. That's how it happened.
It was so majestic. What a wonderful, inspiring story that is.
You're probably like on your way
so-
to the bathroom or something.
I think you were there too, Justin, maybe.
Oh my God.
You were there at one point.
Well, so why don't you tell them what we did ask, what we did settle on doing?
Okay, so I am going to write a novel in the Cassie and Tonk universe with newer characters, and it's going to be about 2 girls, and they are on a boat, and one of them discovers a broken robot, and they become friends. But something terrible is brewing, and they have to stop it. Is basically a very short synopsis without revealing any, cool plot points,
Okay.
I guess.
So for those people who are maybe listening and saying, like, why would we do that? We already write and illustrate our own books in that universe. I'll give you a little feedback. Our readers, we were really surprised by Cassie and Tonk's connection to readership. And then they grew up. And they're now of an age that are reading the kinds of books that Claire writes. And rather than us try to create something that we're not good at, we went looking for someone who is good at writing and creating projects in that space. And we saw Claire doing it. And what it really, I was telling Justin about this when we went for a walk for coffee this morning, that I saw your readers responding to your work, coming up to the table, being super excited about the next book in the series, being really, not just complimentary, but like digging down, like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens to this character and that character and what's going to happen. And your own enthusiasm reflected back at them like, oh my gosh, just wait till you find out what happens here. And I was just so impressed by that level of, it's that thing you look for. As a creative person, you want people to be excited about what they're making and excited with the people who also are connecting to it.
Want that fire.
Yeah, we wanted that fire. So I thought, since we're just old men now and our fire has gone out, we should find somebody who still has that spark.
I'm eternally young.
Now that we're all used up. Huh?
Now that we're all used up, we are finding others to do it. But it also, for us, is an experiment because we don't know if those readers are out there. We don't know for sure whether or not we'll connect with them. So we figured we'll make that your problem.
We're pretending to be like a bigger deal than we are as well. Like when Marvel does a movie, they do a graphic novel, they do kids books, then they do toys, and they do, it's not just one thing. It's a whole branding package of products.
So if we just put our business hats on, it makes sense for us to try it. When we put our creative hats back on, we, thought, Claire, you just had the right kind of fire. And then also you had the right pedigree. People that we knew and respected also really respected your work ethic and the stuff that you were doing. So that kind of closed the loop for us. Now,
that's good. Yeah.
Practically for the people out there who are listening about how we did that, even though we liked each other, we made a contract first. Isn't that right? You want to talk about that? You can be open about your contract stuff.
Sure. So, I don't think I wrote this contract. I think Sam did. But we had some discussion back and forth, and then I don't really know if there's too much I can say about it. I think I remember our conversation, Greg. I think I just had this feeling, and I think you did too. We both wanted to be fair, and we both really have a lot of mutual respect, and so I knew that you weren't out to get me, and that even and that we would try and think of everything to put in the contract so that all the bases were covered. And I think remembering the contract, I think we did cover a lot of bases, and even if there's a base in there that we have forgotten, I'm pretty sure that we all like each other enough that we can talk about it and have a conversation and then resolve an issue. And I think what you said is really important, that we like each other, we have a mutual respect, and I think that's very important to work with people who share similar values to you. I think there's probably a scenario where somebody else could have asked me to do something like this, and I may have said no if I didn't like them. I wouldn't do it if I didn't like them, if they didn't share the values, if I didn't know what their work ethic was. And I think we all have we're all on the same page.
So well, thanks for that. For the sake of the dear listener, I'll say that a practical way of approaching a contract scenario like this, what we did was we laid out in just basic language what we thought was fair. To the person who doesn't know about book contracts, typically a regular publisher will give you 10% of whatever the book is going to make, and they're going to keep the rights to every other thing and maybe give you a slight percentage of those things if you sell a movie deal or some of those things. But their publishing contracts are by and large predatory on the creative side. And so you and I have been in self-publishing long enough to know that, and said, like if we're going to work together, we're going to remove that. So we create a scenario where we said, well, we could pay you in advance to do the book and some royalties after. We could pay you in advance of the book, let you share some of the creative IP. We could let you buy into the print run. Like, we just laid out all the ways in which a book could generate revenue and said, how do you want to split that?
Right. And I think it's different too with what we're doing, because in the regular publishing world, like, you kind of have a very, very small window to make the book big. And while I think that's still kind of true in one respect, because we do conventions all the time, it's new to somebody somewhere.
We have like a year and a half versus 3 months.
Yeah.
There's the normal window.
Yeah. So we can keep promoting the book for like a super long time, and it's still going to be good. We're still going to make money on it, hopefully.
I'm going to jump in here with a question. So once this book is published, who is going to be selling it at whose table? Will all of you sell it at your tables? Or how does that work?
We're all selling it, right?
Yeah, we're all going to sell it. And we're also right now talking to some distributors about like our larger catalog of work. And in our, like, the long-term strategy is to have a big enough catalog of work that a distributor will say, hey, everything that you guys are doing, we can also reach another market outside of conventions. Talking to those distributors and explaining to them that we're going to do sell-through direct first. Some distributors say, no, that eats the market, and other ones understand, no, that builds the market. So depending on which side of that opinion you're on, those are the distributors that we're looking to find and expand. The old way of doing things clearly isn't working, or there wouldn't be so many upstarts joining the fray.
Like Fairy Ink Press.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carving their way out.
Yeah.
But it's also about leveraging your own labor for yourself. Right? If you're going to work that hard on something, you should probably reap some of those rewards.
Yeah.
And we also aren't in a position where we could promise some national campaign. Like, there is a point in which...
But we are kind of doing a national campaign. This book is going to be going...
I guess it's going to visit 30 cities, yeah. Okay, scratch that. Claire, we're going to revisit your contract. No, so what this is for the listener, this is what we call hybrid publishing, where all of the parties involved have a say at the table and are trying to figure out a way to bring a project. Like, deep down, Claire still had to send us an outline that we liked. She had to give us a concept that we thought was a good one. But from our perspective, we also haven't asked too many questions. Is that, would you say that's true?
I would say you've been pretty hands-off, which can be good because, like, I have had a very busy year, and so I've had to change my schedule a lot of different times, and I have to be flexible for a lot of the other things that I do. So, like, basically, as long as the book gets done, it's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of how we feel about it too. And, other people will say that a really rigid schedule is good to hit milestones, and that's true if all things are equal. But in all three of our lives, we're all like in different cities all the time, and we're all doing lots of stuff, and we have to be really flexible with our schedules. So one of the things that I told Claire when we started was, we're not going to check in a lot unless you want us to. So tell us now and be honest whether you want us to be checking in and encouraging you and being cheerleaders, or you just want us to, like, get the hell out of your way while you make a book.
I think at this point, I'm still fine with the hands-off. I think there might come a point where I will tell you, please be my cheerleader, but I don't think we're at that point yet.
And we have a third-party editor too, so we have an objective person who will come and look at the book and fight for the book rather than for Claire's perspective or our perspective. They'll just look at it and say, hey, this is a better story if, right? So
totally impartial.
Frank, everything in order? Yes. Thank you, Bragg.
One of the things that we did also for the dear listener, which is maybe useful to know, we provided a rough story Bible, like a outline of the world and some general
Bible,
themes. Yeah. Just so that Claire could look at the ingredients in general of the story world. But then we said, make up what you want.
Because, yeah, if you're going to write like a Berenstain Bears book,
Right.
you can't be writing a story that would never happen in the Berenstain Bears universe.
Right.
Kind of thing. You
Yeah.
need to know the rules of the world. It's an important thing to put together for any big project or big world building project like this, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, I remember I've had a couple conversations with Justin about some of the world building. So, like, maybe this is presumptuous of me to say, I don't know, but I think that the novel I'm still evolving maybe some of your concepts too, and just kind of building on what you gave me and setting and writing some of the things that maybe you've only put in your drawing, or I don't know, I feel like I'm building on what you've given me, and I want to like contribute to what you've already given me, if that makes sense. That's very wordy.
Definitely, yeah, because like a lot of the questions you asked and the conversations we had, it was stuff I'd never really considered, because Cassie and Tonk is a fairly contained story, and the next two books that we have planned on our end build the world a little bit, but they kind of keep it pretty tight to few characters in a smaller environment. And you're looking at much more of the world than I had been looking at.
Well, in young adult fiction, like, kind of the core concept is like the teenager has to figure out who they are in their world. So it is like very important to know like what the world is and what their impact is going to be. And so that's why I ask those questions, because they're like very important to this other level of writing.
I just had an epiphany. It's not that bold or profound, but what you just said about young adult fiction being about finding yourself in the world, this has been what our conversation has been about. And I think we all know that young adult fiction is read widely by adults, right? Maybe even in some sectors more by adults than by young adults. Do you think that's because so many people are still looking for themselves? Like they're in their 30s, 40s, maybe their 50s, and they're like, hey, shit, nobody, you're like, this isn't the world that was promised me. I'm still looking for things.
Did all those people not question the line? They just traveled down it and ended up at the end?
I think that's part of it. I think part of the appeal of young adult fiction is the escape aspect and returning to those very core, strong emotions, like first kiss, first love, first day of school, first this and that, and just like the raw emotion. I think that's a big appeal, because maybe they want to escape whatever is going on in their own life and just return to that.
To the beginning points. Interesting. Well, what I'm really fascinated to find out in the book that you're writing for us is what that world looks like on the broader page. You know, like when you're working graphic novels, it's very much about here's the image, here's the beat, here's the next plot movement, and then the words the characters are saying, you know, add another layer. But in prose, you can dig so much into a character's point of view, so much more deeply. Like there's going to be more words in the first chapter of your book than are in Cassie and Tonk, Rust and Water, and Dragon Nanny combined, likely.
It's true, yeah.
Right? And so the breadth and width of that story, I'm really looking forward to. So don't wreck it.
Okay, I'll try not.
What if? Okay, we should have this talk on the air. What if it's bad? What do we do? What if what if the ingredients we gave you?
Then we delay release.
That's it? Did we just delay?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like what if down the road you show us your draft, and then we meddle too much in the draft, and then it loses that core element, and then our book is broken? What do we do?
Then we fix it.
How are you going to fix it? Have you been in that position before?
No. Let's have a really big epic falling out and just glare at each other from across the conventions. Like from then on,
we'll have a very public breakup on Twitter and places like that.
I think I would advocate very strongly if there was something that I thought should be in there. I would make my argument to you and the editor, and the editor I think is YA, like she edits YA, so I think she would probably, I don't want to say she'd side with me.
Ouch.
But
Whoa. I see what's happening
but I
here.
think I think she could be like, she would understand where I'm coming from, but I think having worked with you, she'd also understand your point of view, and then she would be able to help us come to a fair outcome.
Right. Well, I feel like one of the things in the like windy path that brought us here, to be able to say to you, like, do this and we'll take our hands off the wheel, is that we've been developing Cassie and Tonk as an animation pitch too. And so working with the director there and working with the team there about stripping away what isn't core, right, has been a sort of a fun, but also challenge. Yeah. Would you say? Like, what parts are we allowed to touch and what parts aren't we allowed to touch? We've been through that already. So when we got to you, we're like, hey, let's give her all the freedom we wished we had.
And I think it's a little different too, because the animation, like, they're doing Cassie and Tonk, like actual Cassie and Tonk, whereas I'm doing, like, it's the same world, but it's different people. So it's a little more removed. I think I maybe have a little even more freedom because I can just, develop characters, and as long as they make sense within the world that you have provided, then it's probably going to be fine. Whereas they're taking actual people that you have made and kind of already molded, and they're creating a animated version. I think that they have to be a little more strict in adhering to your wishes, right?
I think, yeah, we're both I think the flip is we're the ones that had to be more flexible because of the structures required for animation. You can't just come in, stomp around and say, I have to have it my way, right? Because there's a team of people that has to do it a certain way. What did you say about that, Justin?
Yeah. I've been thinking about how kind of like this all started as a sketch of a robot, and then the animation came in and they were like, you have to be able to explain how it works and how the joints connect, and like, you have to be able to like take it apart and make it work properly. And then with you, Claire, as well, like, we had an idea for a short story, and now we have to kind of like explain like this entire world around that short story. And it's what started off as simple things, now you have to rationale like everything around it, and it's been really neat.
But that's just writing.
Yeah.
That's just writing. I mean, for me, that's what I do all the time. So I guess that's why I'm here.
That's amazing. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation that has ranged wildly on the twisting path to the end of our episode. So this has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. We've been here with Claire Marshall. You can check out her website. She has an excellent professional website, as well as her own podcast, Business BFFs. You can listen to that. Join the fight and make comics.
Or write books.